Hello, and welcome to Emerge on the Real, a live discussion that highlights the impact of Emerge and through the perspective of our students, our community members, and our staff. I am Josephine Kohler, the Marketing and Social Media Coordinator here at Emerge, and I am your lucky host today. I have the honor and privilege of introducing two of our very own Emerge scholars, Ebuka Ezekwesili and Edna Olvera. Ebuka and Edna will share their education journey and the impact Emerge has had on their academic success. They will reflect on how their experiences shaped who they are and what they look forward to in this next chapter of their lives. And of course, we will conclude today with a Q&A session for Ebuka and Edna, so make sure you submit your questions in the Q&A chat option below anytime throughout the discussion. Without further ado, welcome Ebuka and Edna.
Thanks for having us.
We're excited to be here.
Great. We'd like to kick things off by letting our audience members get to know you both a bit better. So Ebuka, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Explain to our viewers, who is Ebuka?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ebuka, and I went to DeBakey High School, and I'm currently about to graduate from Johns Hopkins University in a BS in Mechanical Engineering, Bachelor's of Science. And I was born in New York City in the Bronx, and I came to Houston when I was about 7, and kind of been here ever since. And I went to as I said earlier, I went to DeBakey High School. And another thing is I'm the oldest brother of 6 from a Nigerian Igbo household. And just some of the things I'm interested in is just like I'm always interested in just how the world works, from like energy production to financial systems, because things like that fascinate me. And some things I like to do for fun is just play basketball.
I love your diverse range of interests. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Ebuka. Edna, what about you? Who is Edna to our viewers?
Hi, everybody. My name is Edna. I'm a 2017 graduate of East Early College High School in HISD. On Sunday, I'll be getting my degrees in astrophysics and educational studies from Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania. I grew up my entire life in Houston, so the first time that I left was to go to college and just took that leap of faith. I'd like to consider my general life experience to be that of a guinea pig. I'm the oldest daughter in an immigrant family, a Mexican immigrant family, oldest cousin, oldest grandchild. I'm like the first one to do pretty much everything. So I'm just kind of a guinea pig. And I happened to discover Swarthmore through Emerge when I was looking at small liberal arts colleges where I felt like I could be successful. And I guess one of my hobbies is running, which is crazy because I'm not a super athletic person. And growing up, I didn't have access to a gym or anything until I got to Swarthmore. So that's been kind of a nice new hobby that I've picked up. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Edna. So we all know this past year has been really tough given the pandemic, social unrest, and so much more. What are you guys most grateful for? Could you guys tell our viewers what that silver lining has been for each of you? Ebuka, you can start off.
Yeah. Firstly, I was mainly grateful that all my family was safe, just because I have a lot of family scattered, not only in Houston, but also in New York, which was a big epicenter initially, and as well as back all the way in Nigeria. So it was just nice that regardless of the various level of care available to my family, that they all were able to be safe. And the silver lining, though, was that since I was more inside and virtual, I was able to be more active in more clubs. So I joined clubs such as the wind energy team and the rocketry team, and that way that opened me up to new learning opportunities to just learn about how other things work and other mechanical systems, like how they function.
Awesome. I love how you were able to take advantage of the resources at your campus, even during these times. Edna, what about you?
Yeah, so kind of like Ebuka, I'm also just very thankful for the health of my family. And on top of that, we also lived through the 2008 recession, and my entire family works in construction. So if you know anything about that, everyone stopped building then. And so financially, it was a really tough period of time. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it felt like we were going down that route again. But thankfully, we didn't, and we were able to sort of make it through relatively well. And so I'm also thankful for not just our health, but also our economic safety. And the silver lining for me was actually getting to be home for almost a year with my family. My sisters grew up so much in the time that I'd been gone from home, and I didn't realize that. So it was nice to just spend time with them and be home and watch them grow up actually in front of me rather than every couple months when I would go home.
Awesome. I'm really glad you guys were able to find those blessings hidden in between. And thank goodness the circumstances didn't bring you guys back to the times in 2008. That's great to hear. So Edna, how has Emerge played a role in your academic success?
Yeah, so really the impact for me, I mentioned I'm class of 2017 in terms of high school years. So the impact for me was on the side of Emerge in the high school area, just because the college support network wasn't as big back then as it is now. So it was super tangible in the sense of like when we took the SAT prep course, all the workshops that we had to write our personal statements, which are the essays that you write on your college applications in order to submit like as part of your application package. Um, and also just like the access of knowledge to all of these schools that I didn't think I could ever, one, like some I didn't know existed, like Swarthmore, but two, that like I didn't know I could have access to, like the Ivy Leagues, that would be possible for me. And knowing, that the financial aid is out there, it's just a matter of getting your application materials together and knowing that I do have the grades to get in. So just knowing that knowledge and knowing different places. And then like in return, I've been able to share a lot of that knowledge with other students, which I think just speaks to the mission of Emerge in general.
I love how you were able to just continue carrying on that Emerge mission just naturally through the way you can share that knowledge to others. So that's really encouraging to hear. Ebuka, how has Emerge played a role in your academic success?
Yeah, so I think Emerge kind of helped me understand all of the options that were available to me and encouraged me to kind of dream big for like elite schools because I knew I wanted to go to college, but I never really kind of put too much thought about which ones. And initially, and additionally, they were very helpful in like the whole process, from like personal statement workshops to like just kind of financial aid and gathering documents. And they were just kind of because there were a lot of things that they required that I hadn't even heard of. So it's very nice for like program managers like Miss Bradford to just kind of help me figure out what were all the things I needed and like how do I do it.
Mm. So then I'm curious, how did you guys go about selecting your major? Was that something Emerge played a part in for that decision process, or what did that kind of look like? Ibuka, you can continue.
Yeah, so it was Merge kind of helped played a part in that because back in my junior year of high school, like 2016, my program manager at the time, Ms. Bull, kind of advised me to take some classes that may show interest in like some engineering courses. And so then that's how through research, that's how I stumbled upon this summer program called the Johns Hopkins Engineering Innovation Program, which is essentially just like a 2-month course where you basically learn all about the various types of engineering from like electrical, mechanical, civil, and things like that. And you just take like a bunch of courses and things like that, and just to kind of learn what it's like to be an engineer at college. And after I went there, that kind of helped narrow down which engineering I wanted to be and kind of which one do I want to focus on. And then that also kind of gave me brought to my attention what Johns Hopkins was and like who they were, and it kind of helped me commit to them and going there and studying mechanical engineering.
That's awesome. So you got exposure to Johns Hopkins pretty early on, even with that program. So that's really encouraging to hear. Edna, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, it's a little bit different. I was already like determined to be an engineer, so originally I wanted to be a civil engineer. It didn't work out, but it's fine. And so I knew that I was looking for colleges with engineering programs, but like that's a really big subset of schools. And so really the conversation with my Emerge program manager was, okay, you want to be an engineer, what else do you need in order to succeed and make sure that you graduate in 4 years? And so just, we had kind of a heart to heart and got real with, I'm a first generation Latina. The odds are is I'm going to leave home and be really far away. There's a lot of pressure on me. So I also need a lot of support, and not just a lot of support, but also easy access to said support systems. And so that's how my PM and I kind of came to the decision that like the best options for me were going to be small liberal arts schools. And then that pretty much narrowed it down because there's only a few small liberal arts schools that have ABIT accredited or just engineering accredited programs. And so that's how I ended up choosing Swarthmore. And then that was because I wanted to be an engineer, but I changed my major to astrophysics actually after participating in a summer program, much like Ebuka. So the one at Swarthmore is called the Swarthmore Summer Scholars Program. It is 5 weeks, and you do it before the fall that you get here. And so every year they teach like a different science because it's meant for first generation low income students interested in STEM. And so my year happened to be the physics and astronomy year. And I remember going up to the telescope for the first time and just like totally fell in love. And I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to study this. So it was kind of like a, sort of a journey to get there, but I think it all worked out in the end.
Even though your journeys were definitely so different, like hearing how you were able to, one, take advantage of summer programs and make sure that those gaps or those bridges were able to be given to you. And then two, something that you highlighted, Edna, was the fact that you were able to think about what you needed. So, right, you're not only thinking about those extrinsic needs, but those intrinsic needs of like, what is college fit for you? And the way you articulated that was like perfect, like emerge mission once again going out there. So good job, you guys. That's really encouraging. Yeah, so then transitioning onwards, I wanted to ask Ebuka and both of you guys, but Ebuka, you can answer first. Just kind of what advice would you give some of our emerge students who are just a few years behind you, whether it's how to choose a college or maybe the difference or anything that you can speak upon with your experience?
Yeah, I think some of the things that I think was very helpful in terms of like figuring out which college I want to go to or things like that was just mainly like the alumni network, the financial aid assistance, as well as the support resources that kind of Edna mentioned a bit earlier. So the alumni network is just essentially like just all the people who graduated from that colleges before they stay in touch with the university and just kind of help. A lot of times they usually like to give back and kind of stay connected with the school, and they do that via by like talking with students and meeting with them in different events. And so I think that's very helpful just because you can kind of, if you have some idea or if you, even if you have no idea, it's nice to talk to someone who's kind of like 10 years ahead of you and is doing that career path you're maybe thinking about doing. And you could kind of chat with them, see what they like about it, what they don't like, and just get a better sense of it. And it's very helpful until they're trying to get jobs afterwards. So it's really nice. And financial aid I thought was important just because it kind of reduces a big area of stress and school can be expensive and it can allow you to just put more focus, more effort on like actually studying, doing the classes and getting the coursework needed to be done. And then finally the support resources that like Enna was saying earlier was very helpful just because I think getting to college is nice, but you kind of have to finish there and kind of go through the 4 years. So kind of having different support resources such as like the writing center, which kind of helps with like essay review help, subject group or individual tutoring programs that's available, or even like social programs that are like aimed at like low income and or minority students. And these help resources kind of help make sure that you not only survive but thrive in college. Oh, I think you're
Can you
muted.
can you tell any stories or maybe even an anecdote of like what an experience was for you in college where you were able to realize even just like a level of ownership or responsibility that you realized on your own?
Oh yes. Another thing is that like I would say the level of personal responsibility definitely like shifts from like everybody else to you just because and when you're in high school you kind of you go to school, you have a rigid schedule, you do this, you do that, your parents are on you, your program manager's on you, like your teachers are on you versus when you're in college, your schedule is more fluid and all of that, all those past responsibilities kind of get placed back on you. And so it's kind of on you to make sure that you finish the assignments on time, you finish the projects on time because they won't be constantly reminding you. So that's kind of like a big shift. And another thing is just like you're kind of living, well, either living by yourself or you have more independence. And so like you have more freedom to kind of decide what to do on top of it. So you can decide to go to club activities or have fun or when to study, but it's kind of making sure you carefully manage that. And like one answer though is like beginning of my freshman year, there was like a big student involvement fair where basically kind of like all the clubs in the school kind of go to the gym and try to talk to you and kind of like convince you to join their club and why they love it and things like that. And I remember like just going through it, it was really nice. And I kind of joined like 10 to 15 clubs, which was obviously not very sustainable. And so kind of like during my first 2 weeks, I was kind of just going to a lot of clubs, but I wasn't really doing school, which was kind of like why I was there. So that definitely kind of reminded me to like make sure that I choose which ones I wanted and make sure I stay focused and stay engaged while getting my work done.
Thanks for sharing. Yes, I think one, I'm glad you were able to realize that early on and then definitely take accountability for your path to success, which is clearly just continuing to shine at this point right now. Edna, what about you? What wise words would you share with our Emerge Village?
Yeah, so I have three key pieces of advice. Take notes, everyone. Number one, make sure that you figure out what it is that you need to be successful, and that just means being very honest with yourself. And I say that from experience. Obviously, I sat down with my PM and figured out this is what I needed because, like Ebuka said, you have to make sure you graduate in 4 years. And I don't say this to scare anyone, but getting into college, that's the easy part. Graduating is the hard part. As hard as this application season is for all our high school seniors, there are harder things coming. And so you just have to set yourself up for success, because no one's going to look out for you the way you need to look out for you. Number two is follow the money. So wherever the best financial aid is, that's where you need to go. You need to make sure that you put yourself in the best possible financial situation after you graduate. So don't just think about like the current moment. Think about what will life potentially look like for me 4 years from now as a new graduate. And having less debt or the least amount of debt is always a good thing. Just talk to anyone with loans. And the third one is to not be afraid to pursue something new and interesting. And this is specifically for me, I mean, to leave the state. If at all possible, leave Texas, go somewhere else. There is never a better time than now to just move somewhere for 4 years and experience something new, because I feel like that really made me grow up. It really made me into an adult. It forced me, you know, to look out for myself and just become more responsible. And there's never a better time than to do it now. And I'll just tell like a quick story about, you know, what it means to really be honest with yourself and what you need, because I see this a lot, especially with first generation students, is we might be more persuaded to go to more name brand schools if we have the opportunity to, even if that's not the best choice. And I say this because I mentioned I wanted to be an engineer, right? So I got into the Cornell and Duke engineering programs, and then there was Swarthmore, and they were all full rides. And so everyone back then told me, you need to go to Duke, you need to go to Duke, you need to go to Duke. If you want to be an engineer, you have to go to Duke. And I said, I don't think I'd graduate in 4 years from there. I need a small community. I need to have easy access to those resources. And so I had to be honest to myself and let go of the idea of that prestige. Not that Swarthmore isn't prestigious, but at least back home, everyone knows what Duke is. No one knows what Swarthmore is, right? And so I was just honest with myself, and clearly it worked out for me because I'm actually graduating, right? So just be honest with yourself and what you need. Yeah, those are my pieces of advice to everyone listening.
Thank you for sharing. And, just amazing that you got into all of those schools, first of all, but then I love how you really own that decision. And it's just clear, it seems like in all of your decision-making processes, you really internalized a lot of things so you can be confident in those decisions. So that's super impressive. I'm really excited for both of you guys. Where can we expect to see you after you walk across that virtual, non-virtual stage? And what might you be excited for the most in this next chapter ahead? Edna, you can start us off.
Yeah, so thankfully my college was nice enough that we will have an in-person and a virtual commencement, so that's gonna be great. But after that, I will actually be an engineer. I got a job as a computer systems engineer, so went through all of that, and then just ended up right back where I wanted to start, right?
Can you explain that switch a little bit?
Yeah, so it wasn't super intentional, but in physics, there's like a level of math and a level of like data manipulation that you get to that you just can't do by hand. And so I was just kind of forced to learn how to code in Python to be able to finish my homework. And so once I got a little bit of experience with that, because I'd never coded before, I was doing my physics coursework. I was like, wow, I really like this. Like, I like being able to code all the stuff, fix all the bugs, and then have my simulation work and it has some sort of physical meaning. So that's kind of how I discovered or picked up on a little bit of the interest in computer science. Unfortunately, it was too late for me to be able to switch into any of the computer science stuff here at Swarthmore because it's very popular. So if you don't start like freshman year, there's really no way of being able to move in. And so then I decided that the way that I would go about this was either like I'll graduate and go get a master's in like data science or explore software engineering, that kind of stuff. Or I'll like try to get a job doing this. And so I was able to find a training program for computer systems engineers through McMaster Carr in Chicago. So I'll move there later in the summer. And so they're going to train me. And I was actually very surprised. I was like, whoa, I don't know if anyone's going to hire me without any like formal computer science training. But there is actually a lot of jobs that just look for really smart, easy to teach individuals. And so that's how I was able to get my into this program. And there's a couple others as well at different companies. I'll mention one at Capital One Bank also has a program. If anyone's listening and wants to make the switch into computer science, that's how you go about it. But yeah, that's kind of how the switch happened. I'm really excited to start a new career. No better time than now is always my my take on things.
Clearly, you have so much strategy in every approach that you kind of embark upon. So that's really encouraging to hear. I think that's really good practical advice for our students that are planning on even pursuing certain things, like take that risk. And so thank you for sharing your experience. Ibuka, what about you? Where can we see you next?
Yeah, so kind of similar to Edna, I'll be having my graduation ceremony tomorrow, and luckily it'll be also in person and virtual, so that's really nice as well. And afterwards, I do plan to join this defense company called Textron. I'm working under like their Bell Textron unit in their engineering leadership development program. And so for like my first rotation, I'll be in North Texas, Amarillo, working with Bell helicopters as a production engineer. So it'll be pretty nice. And it's a kind of side note, it's kind of nice hearing about Edna about McMaster car because that's something that I've kind of used a lot as like a mechanical engineering ordering stuff. So it's pretty interesting just learning about all this stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
I know all the engineers that I know, and then I tell them I'm working for McMaster-Carr. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool!"
Wait, that's so cool that y'all are gonna just like, by indirect ways really just overlap in your experiences like in the real world as well. That's really awesome. I love it. I feel like you have gone through so much and you're about to enter adulting now. So congratulations to both of you guys. You are going to be walking that stage so soon. And so huge congrats in advance from the Emerge family. We do have time for some questions and we actually have quite a few. So we will continue on with Q&A. And if you have some more, please feel free to drop them in the chat or in the Q&A option while we answer. I will go first with Simon, and he asks, how was it moving from Houston to the Northeast and getting used to being away from home? And this is a really good question. I will have Ebuka go first.
What's up, Simon? And yeah, I think it was like the biggest thing was just trying to just realizing that a lot of the people, like a lot of support systems that you used to kind of have like offhand is just much farther. And so I have to just put more careful thought in planning when say you want to travel. So like before, if I wanted to do anything, I'll just ask my mom or asking my cousin, anyone who's in the area. But now that I'm all the way in East New York, I mean East East North America, I now have to try to see like, okay, I need to get to the airport. How do I do that? I need to do this. I need to get airport. I need to get suitcases, things like that. And I think another big thing was like the winters because even though I was from New York, I was kind of a kid and I don't think I remember too much of it. So I thought I was used to it, but actually living in the cold was kind of like, even though Baltimore was not really that cold, I felt it. And so just things like that.
Texas winter is no comparison whatsoever. Edna, can you also give some of your input?
Yeah, I think pretty much Ebuka covered it all. For me, it was my mom has also helped me a lot growing up. She's a stay-at-home mom, and so whenever I needed her to drive me to the store to get stuff for a project or to take me to a certain event, she was always there. And so like leaving home and not having my mom there to help me out, that was really difficult to adapt to. And then yeah, definitely the winters are really hard to get used to. But like even the summer here in Philadelphia is incredibly humid. It is so much worse than Houston, and I never thought I'd say that. But mainly because they don't have ACs in all the buildings. So the weather was definitely something to get used to. But like at the end of the day, you just kind of realize that this is part of the journey and these are the experiences that you're having and they're all going to lead to like a great end, right? Graduation and then the opportunities that are going to come with it. So yeah.
Awesome. And you are going to Chicago, which is just going to be just as cold, if not more, I'm not sure. And then welcome back to Texas, Ebuka. So kind of in alignment with that question, we also have a question of what did that conversation look like with your parents in terms of leaving home? Was that a difficult conversation? Any advice for students that are struggling with that kind of conversation to be had soon? And what would you give them as that advice? Edna, we can start off with you for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it should have been a harder conversation considering just like my background as the oldest daughter of two Mexican immigrants. But it actually wasn't. My parents have always been very supportive of me. They've always said, whatever is going to be good for you is going to be good for us. And so if you feel like this is the right thing to do, then go for it. So thankfully, they never held me back. I also grew up very much, very independent. So I was like, well, I'm going to go do this. And I just want to leave Texas. But I can see how it can be really difficult for other people. You're leaving home, you're asking parents to trust that their children that are 17, 18 years old, making the decision to leave home for 4 years is the right thing to do. And I would just say, this is more to parents than to students, but it's just to the parents that might be listening to this, is let them go and it's all going to work out. Trust that they've gotten far enough to get into these schools. Let them experience that. They're gonna be fine. If your kids are smart enough to get into these schools, they're smart enough to figure it out on their own. And it's hard, but that's the truth.
Yes, Edna, speak those words of wisdom to our parents as well, our students and families. We love everyone in our community. Ebuka, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it was like a lot of the stuff I agree with her, just because kind of like as the oldest, I feel like my mom was just kind of known that I was very not very independent, but just like I could handle responsibilities, just taking care of all my brothers and sisters and kind of doing all those assignments. So that wasn't like kind of me handing out being out by myself is not as big a concern. I think another big challenge that was just for her at the beginning was just like explaining the fact that it actually could be potentially cheaper to go somewhere else, because maybe some private universities outside the states can afford more versus like, cause I know a lot of parents may hear that it is cheaper technically in Texas if you didn't get any aid, but I know a lot of universities outside of Texas have a lot of money to share. And so like, just kind of explain that to her that no, I want to take out 70K in loans every year. Like they'll help me out. So things like that just kind of helped appease her to make sure that I was like doing the right decision and not like messing myself up.
Great advice, guys. Okay, so Devin has a question in terms of what, if you guys can recall back to senior year in high school, what was that application process like for y'all in terms of even what schools might you have ED or EA for early decision and early application?
I can start off with that one. What was the application process like? A blur. It was really hard. I remember staying up really late, finishing drafts of supplements and all like the activity stuff on the Common App. So that was all a blur, but actually EA'd to Yale and then visited Swarthmore and was pretty sure I wanted to go here, but I wanted to wait and see if Yale would take me. They ended up rejecting me, and Swarthmore offered to let me ED even after the deadline, and I still said, you know what, I'm okay, I'll wait. So I don't know. You sometimes just kind of gotta trust your gut and kind of see where it leads you. But yeah, it was a blur. It was rough. Lost a lot of sleep, but it pays off.
Yeah, I think mine's is pretty similar. Like I think I did a lot. I applied to a lot of places. Like I remember did like QuestBridge, which is like a program where like I think you like early apply. Like I think it's early decision, early apply. I don't remember, to like a bunch of schools just to see which ones like will help me out. I remember kind of like what she like Edna said. Like I did like the college application and try to do like supplemental essays and things like that. And in terms of like trying to figure out which schools, I remember basically I remember it more now just because my brothers are like two of my brothers and sisters are going to college this year, so it kind of refreshed my memory. But I remember using just like college, big future college, one of those combination of words to kind of use all that filter to kind of see, ooh, what if I want 4 years and then I want full ride, or what if I want basketball but I don't want to do this football program? So just kind of tinker around with that, just kind of help me figure out which schools I wanted to do and things like that.
Great advice, guys. And I think both of you guys just really owning it and saying like the ball really is in your court, and just be confident in what you have to offer as well. So that while you look for these schools, you're looking for what's also good for you. So I love that you guys kept that in mind throughout the whole process. We have another question from Micah. Hi, Ms. Olvera and Mr. Ezekwesili. I am currently attending spring early college and I have come to a problem where I want to attend Johns Hopkins. Unfortunately, they will not accept majority of my credits. I chose to go to early college to get ahead, and attending Johns Hopkins would cause me to basically start over. And so as you guys have near the end of this process, what are just some of your opinions or your advice that you might have on this situation?
So I think Micah got lucky in the people that are in the real, because Ebuka can tell you all about how great Johns Hopkins is. And I can tell you that I went to an early college, got a full associate's degree from Houston Community College, and still came to Swarthmore knowing that I would not be able to transfer any credits. And I don't regret it for a second. Number one, I'm assuming that the financial aid at Johns Hopkins is probably better than everything else you're getting. So I would just take it, because at the end of the day, the span of graduating in 2 years versus 4 years. So whether you get your bachelor's at 20 or 22 doesn't really matter in the short term in terms of starting your career. You're going to be pretty much at the same place. And so there's the odds are is that there are probably a lot more opportunities and access to like the alumni network at Johns Hopkins, as Ibuka's mentioned before, that are going to be so much more worth it for those extra 2 years of coursework. And I'll tell you that going to community college did not help me academically prepare me at all for like an actual 4 year program. So I don't think in terms of academics, you're missing out on a lot. I think it's probably actually better for you to start over and start where all the other students are starting and just kind of progress sort of at the same rate. So I'm telling you, as someone who lost like those 2 years, that it's totally fine, and you should go to Johns Hopkins. And now we can tell you how great about Johns Hopkins is.
What a great transition. Go, Ebuka.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with a lot of what Edna said because Johns Hopkins, especially due thanks to Mr. Bloomberg, they kind of have a lot of support for like students who demonstrate need. And so hopefully your package is really generous and it make the decision easier. And on top of it, even though you don't get the associates, the knowledge is still in your head. They can't take it out. And so you always know that stuff. And so when you take those courses, even though you'll still be in the same class as the next person, they'll be like, how'd you know all this stuff in chemistry one? It's because I took it before. And so you'll just excel even further. And like it won't show in credits, but it will show like in your GPA and just in like your general knowledge base. And now you'll be able to expand to more new interesting classes that you haven't taken in your social college that you can now take in Hopkins that was afforded to you by your going to early college. So I don't think it was for a waste because you still learn something new.
Yes, what amazing growth mindsets you guys just shared out there. And you guys can come back as guest program managers for Emerge whenever. Obviously, Micah, we hope you're able to also internalize your own circumstance and your own situation. But I think you were very lucky, like Edna said, to have the perfect two panelists for this reel so that you can maybe have that extra advice that you might have needed. We will finish this with one last question from Neil. This past year has brought immense challenges. And earlier, you guys reflected back on some of the silver linings and the grateful things in your heart. But what were or are some of your biggest challenges or obstacles that you did face? Ebuka, you can start us off with this one.
Sorry, is this in terms of COVID or just like in general, like my whole college career?
I think this one is specifically about this pandemic year. But
Yeah,
if
I
there
think
isn't one that you wanted to really highlight, you can talk about one over your whole college career.
yeah, I guess one that was maybe I mean one I guess I'll say two. One that was kind of just general was just like just trying to make sure that you can manage the level of coursework because not manage the level of coursework, but just kind of understanding how the topics because you think, oh, I know calculus now. This is easy. And then they say here's calculus two. Oh, I know that now. Here's three, here's four. And so like just trying to manage that level of like math and physics as it get harder was just kind of something that was kind of a bit of struggle. And then I'd say COVID or the pandemic was just like so a lot of my classes were used to be like labs and in-person activities in terms of like mechanical engineering stuff. So like for our senior design project, we were supposed to be in the lab building our stuff. But since we were online, we had to they had to like ship us stuff and we just couldn't do some things like that. So that kind of maybe limited some of the opportunities that I may have had. But I think it worked out just because even though we were not able to go to the lab, we now had to figure out how can we still complete this project at home where all of us are scattered around and it kind of just makes it more realistic or more real life because real life is not always coordinated and clean. There's always just things in the way.
And now you can go ahead.
Yeah, for me, just in terms of this past year in the pandemic and like learning online, I absolutely love my professors and I've had the privilege of being taught by some of the smartest individuals ever. But I miss working with my peers. I miss being at the blackboard at midnight in the library talking about some random equations that if you heard come out of our mouth, you'd be like, is this a sci-fi movie? And it's not. It's just our homework. You know, I miss going back to my dorm and like being able to knock on my neighbor's door and say, hey, like, can we look over that code now? And then we can just sit on the dorm in the dorm lounge and code. So I really miss um, working with my peers that was really the hardest thing, because even though like we were able to get together on Zoom and sort of troubleshoot and share your screen and show me what you've written, it's not the same thing as being able to be with them. And there's also like a camaraderie in the struggle and just being like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm over this professor, I don't like this, but like still being in community. And so that's really hard to replicate and try to do online. But we were able to do it well enough to get to graduate. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for sharing. I know it must have been hard to finish off with this pandemic, but you guys have done it, and just big congratulations to you guys both. And that wraps it up for us on our 5th episode of Emerge on the Real with our Emerge scholars, but very, very soon to be Emerge alumni, Ebuka and Edna. Ebuka, I hope you enjoy your first year in Amarillo, and Edna, you in the Windy City. You guys have so much ahead in store, and I cannot wait to see where this next stage of life leads you guys. And I know on behalf of all of Emerge, we just want to thank you for sharing your experiences and really allowing us to play a small part in your magnificent story. And so I really enjoyed this conversation. And I hope that if any of you in the audience had more questions, feel free to reach out to them. We really thank you guys for tuning in, and we hope that everyone just has a great day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.